सारे जहां से अच्छा हिंदुस्तान हमारा नया विजेता मिला है इस विश्व को, और वो विजेता है भारत। ये जीत सिर्फ इन लड़कियों की नहीं है, ये जीत कई दशकों की, कई बरसों की तपस्या की है, मेहनत की है, मशक्कत की है। India's recent World Cup win created unprecedented euphoria around the women in blue. Now, there are questions on equity. As primetime viewing of women's cricket slips into highlight reels, there are questions on what the win will actually do for women's cricket in India. Will it give the brand of women's cricket actual sustainable visibility and marketability? Will it create an ecosystem that spawns such winner stories throughout the year and not just once in many years? Can Harmanpreet and Smriti Mandana ever command the same brand fees and endorsements as Virat Kohli? Should they even try? In this episode, I talk to two marketing veterans with very different answers. Business and brand strategy specialist Harish Bijur brings reality checks and caution, while Lloyd Matthias, marketing veteran, angel investor, and business strategist, sees a generational inflection point. Both, however, agree that the blueprint to scale women's cricket is about consistent playing and visibility, ground-up story building, and, according to Harish, crazy ideas. Listen on, it's Tuesday, the 25th of November. I'm Anirban Chaudhary. This is the Morning Brief. Hi Harish, very warm welcome to the Morning Brief. Glad you could make time.
Thank you, Anirban. My pleasure being with you.
We are talking about brand women in blue, if I may call it that. And it seems that their time has come. Now, for years, we've seen brands have overwhelmingly backed male sportsmen, male cricketers. Let's start with that, the status quo right now. Can you break down, the key factors right now that determine how brands choose which sports persons to invest in? And of course, what's been missing from that equation for women athletes until now?
See, firstly, Anirban, in this space, I want to be a super optimist and say that yes, women's cricket has arrived in India. And hey, listen, our women cricketers are going to attract a fair bit of traction when it comes to brand monies and brand endorsement monies. And finally, I want to say that, hey, listen, our women cricketers are going to be commanding literally the same prizes that our men cricketers are commanding from the brand endorsement market. That would be super optimism. I don't have that. I am an optimist, but not such a super optimist on this. Let me look at the history of cricket in India. Cricket has been a boys' game, okay? And I think Indian society segregated it in such a manner, saying that boys will play cricket and girls will play possibly some other games. And I think that history of genderization is what is continuing till today. Today, in 2025, with this Women's World Cup win, we have a moment to actually de-genderize cricket. We must attempt it. And I think one of the big sets of people who must attempt it are brand owners.
Understood. But can you break down the process right now? What does a brand or a company think while backing a particular sports person? What is the kind of checklist that translates to the math? And also, what is the math?
I'm going to dip into two aspects out here. Fundamentally, from the fact that I do handle a set of male cricketers, I do the personal branding for these cricketers. And secondly, I do handle the advertising kitties of a set of companies which invest in cricket. Now, let me look at it from both perspectives. From the perspective of the corporate first, I have an X amount of money and I want it to be put out there into a sport for a start. And the first sport that comes to mind is cricket. And therefore, it'll go into cricket, and cricket is equal to men's cricket. And there will be a little bit of money which will go into women's cricket. So if I am going to be spending 100, I'm going to be spending, 91.5 on men's cricket. And possibly the balance amount is going to go into women's cricket. Now, there begins a dysfunction and there begins a disparity. But the brand manager is right, because the brand manager sits back and says that where are the eyeballs? And when you look at the eyeballs, this entire nation gives its eyeballs to cricket in a big way. 983 million eyeballs. Actually, that's multiplied into two, actually focusing on cricket. Now, that is what it's all about. So, till Indian women's cricket gains the kind of eyeballs that men's cricket gains, there is going to be disparity. And I think investment into cricket will continue in this manner. It's business as usual. And business as usual for investment in cricket is men's cricket. We need to now create business unusual. Are we ready for it? Is the question.
What will the brands now look for when evaluating women cricketers as ambassadors? Do you think that checklist will now change?
See, the checklist will definitely change. What are the brand stories that revolve around the individual actors in this game? When I say actor, it is the sports person. Each one of them is going to be evaluated very carefully. The kind of towns they come from, the kind of stories that they have brought to the party, the success stories, the passion that they bring to the game. Now, these are things that need to be built up. So, the entire cricket ecosystem, starting from BCCI downwards, let's say, I would say needs to invest in creating stories about every one of our cricketers who we have, digging back into history, going back from the times of Shanta Rangaswamy and going upwards into some of the newer ones. Indian women's cricket need to be built, and we need to build it grassroots upwards. And that effort is something a big corporate must put big corporate monies into. And it could be a conglomeration of 6, 7 corporates coming together and saying, let's do something for Indian women's cricket. Do that, and I think in the next 8 to 10 years, hopefully, we are going to be at par.
Is the equation between men and women very different in other sporting nations?
Well, not really, not in other sporting nations. The United States of America, where I do a fair bit of work, or let me look at Germany. Again, I do a fair bit of work out of there in this space. I don't see difference out there. I don't see difference out there.
Harish, you've spoken quite a bit about inequity. Just to end this conversation, what is equity in women's cricket to you? Aside of the money and brand endorsements, of course.
The ultimate bite of equity is when we have an IPL format where there's one team, and within the team, there are 7 men, and the rest of them are women in the same team. When a man plays a woman and a woman plays a man, I think that's the ultimate equity. Crazy idea, crazy notion, but I think its time will come someday or the other.
Mixed Premier League, let's go. Thank you so much, Harish, for your insights. They were brilliant as usual.
Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Next, I asked Lloyd what he thinks are the ways in which this win will change women's cricket.
I think two big things. I think for one, you can clearly say that, women sportsmen are now going to be a significant part of the marketing mix. Just one tournament and literally the span of, 2 weeks made many of them household names, right? Harmanpreet Kaur, Smriti Mandhana, Jemima Rodrigues, Shefali Verma. This time it really kind of took the whole thing to a different level. And I think that bodes well for women's sport, certainly for women's cricket, and also for marketers. The second point, which I believe is going to be critical, is that right now for a lot of businesses, cricket was a very expensive proposition because for most people, cricket was really about the IPL and men's cricket. I think this has opened a new dimension. The fact that cricket ought not to be just men's cricket in India or IPL. Indian women cricketers will have a following whenever they play, with any team internationally. So I think it opens up a new dimension and therefore broad bases the cricket sponsorship pie.
Can you give me some details? What are you hearing? What kind of an increase are we seeing? Which players? If not which brands, at least which sectors? That our listeners would love to know.
Yeah, I think one is, everyone's talking about, huge jump. I'm told that, they vary from, at least for the big names, they're really looking at maybe doubling their current sponsorship value.
What is their current value?
I think most of them, to my mind, are in that 25 to 30 lakh bracket, at least the bulk of them. I think we're looking at, flat doubling, right? Which is still a fraction of where some of our male cricketing superstars are. But by itself, it represents a huge, huge jump. The second point is also it's a broad basing, right? Cricketers tend to be, at least male cricketers tend to be very much a lifestyle and such categories. I think with women, you're really adding a new level, right? It's not just about, very basic lifestyle or product endorsements. Actually, you're talking about a lot of other areas where some of these women cricketers can become famous. Specifically, also, I would say this because a lot of these women cricketers have come from, shall we say, smaller towns of the country, right? It's been truly representative of a kind of large nation. It's not a Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore kind of phenomena. So I think one would see a lot of it, which means local brands from specific states, North Bengal, Orissa, will now be able to actually have a local star, a sporting star, a woman sporting star that they can leverage for brand endorsements. So I think
That's
it's
interesting.
broad basing the sponsorship pie. Yes.
Tell me about gaps. What is a commercial lever that women's cricket has not pulled yet, to turn this into a real market?
I think it has not been a sustained effort. Women's cricket gets noticed when, let's say, this is one moment, but when India has a big win, or for that brief period when there's the Women's Premier League. Whereas the men's cricket has a round the year following, right? India plays a lot of cricket, but across the three formats, tests, ODIs, T20s, across the IPL and other leagues that India participates in, I think there's a round the year calendar. I think women's cricket still remains very sporadic. I hope that this World Cup win will correct it. That's going to help enhance the brand value.
Got it. I think one of the gaps is that women's cricket still lacks like a fan economy, which is so important these days, right? It's across creator economies, it's across content, it's across sports. It's an integral part of branding. As a market and branding veteran, marketing and branding veteran, if you had to give them a mantra of the quickest way to build a fan economy, what would that be? Would it be, say, merch, say, memberships, or media?
I think what happens is a lot of the agents and those who are marketing these cricketers will have to create a calendar of activity, right? So it's not just that they get recognized only when they play, but also things they do, right? And I would say a couple of cricketers have created a bit of a niche, right? Jemima
Correct.
is in the news. She's a musician. She plays the guitar.
Right.
I think these little sound bites that each of them had with the prime minister, a lot of them are going viral in the form of reels.
Right.
I think these are the smaller things that their agents will need to use very well, right? Talk about some of the smaller towns that they represent, right? The captain Harmanpreet Kaur comes from Moga in Punjab, right? Smriti Mandhana comes from Sangli, right? So Sri Charani comes from Kadapa. So I think work needs to be done to build those little urban stories. I think one has to keep these stories coming. Right. And as women cricketers, therefore, there will be a lot of opportunities, the things they do, the social causes. I think one has to keep them in the news in some way, almost curate their existence here on.
Finally, Lloyd, do you think women's cricket should stay bundled with men in sponsorship deals for now? Or is this the time when they finally go solo and force the market's hand?
Perfect time to break away. I think women's cricket ought not to have, hitched its ride to the coattails of men's cricket. I know BCCI is the common body, but I think this is a great moment for women's cricket to break away. The fact that there is a fan following, Indian women cricketers are doing fabulously well. A lot of them have created niches and brands of themselves. I think this is the perfect moment to segue from the larger umbrella of cricket and just talk about the fact that women's cricket is representative of Indian women in general. Right. And in a sense, if you look at back at the Olympics, Indian women have outperformed men in various sports, right? Badminton being a clear case in point, I would say to some extent boxing. So I think this is a perfect moment to tell the larger story of the success of Indian women, completely aside from the dominance of Indian males in cricket.
Lloyd, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure was mine. Thank you for having me, Anirban.
So there you have it. One voice says we are 8 to 10 years away from equity. The other says the time to break away is now. But like I said, both agree that eyeballs don't translate to money without stories, without year-round calendars, and without brands willing to bet on the uncomfortable math. Are we ready to build women's cricket right? That's the question. You were listening to this episode on The Morning Brief. It was produced by Vinay Joshi and me, sound designed by Indranil Bhattacharjee. A new episode of The Morning Brief drops every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday on a listening platform of your choice. Some good news before we wind up. Corner Office Conversation, our new show, features in the Best of 2025 list on Apple Podcasts. It's a show where we talk to the most interesting business and thought leaders from India and the world. Corner Office Conversation drops every alternate Monday wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, on Wednesdays, you have Surabhi, Himanshi, Swati, and others from ET's tech team talking to the hottest global tech entrepreneurs and C-suite executives on ET in the Valley. That's almost a full week of listening. Stay tuned. The external clip in this episode belongs to its owner. Credits are mentioned in the description.